minutes. No? Okay. My name is Ian Thorpe. Very pleased to be here this evening as a representing council, and very pleased to welcome everybody and to MC this very special event as we present City of Nanaimo Civic Sport Merit Awards. And this is always really enjoyable for me. We recognize talent in our city, and we have an amazing number of people in our city that deserve recognition, people that we should all be proud of. Just a bit of background. Each year, City Council presents certificates of congratulations and medallions to individuals, groups, teams, or clubs who through their endeavors have brought recognition to our city at either a provincial, Western Canadian, national, or possibly international level during the past year. Recipients must have been nominated through the city website, they must be residents of the City of Nanaimo, and they must have won gold medals in their event. And I emphasize that these are gold medal winners, every one. Tonight, we are recognizing an amazing total of 50 individuals who have brought that honor to our city for their outstanding sports performances. And I need to clarify again that I don't think I mentioned this. We are talking about achievements in the calendar year 2024. So for example, gold medalists from this past summer's BC 55 plus games will not be eligible until next year, and we look forward to seeing a number of those people then. So this is from the year 2024. And in terms of housekeeping, I would like to move through this as efficiently as we can, everybody. So here's what it's going to look like. Throughout the ceremony, each group of recipients for a particular event or sport will get called down to the front, just to this area in front of me. So if you hear your sport or the event that you were involved with, please start to move down that way. And then I will name each person individually, hopefully getting them right in alphabetical order. When I announce your name, please proceed just in front of me to my left to receive your certificate and medallion from Councillors Armstrong and Perino, ably assisted by our city staff. And then the fun continues. If you receive your medallion and certificate, please continue on out the far doors to the left there for a photo opportunity with Mayor Krogh. And at the end of our presentations, we would also like to have one group photo taken as well. So please don't rush away too quickly. We do have a number of recipients who are not able to join us here tonight, and that's unfortunate, but we'll certainly still acknowledge them and of course make sure that they receive their medals and medallions. So we'll get underway. The first medal presentation is for a gold medal winner at a national level who represented Nanaimo at the 2024 Canada 55 plus games. Those were in Quebec City in 24. Sheila King, could you please come down? Here she is. Congratulations, Sheila, please. Sheila won gold medal in women's singles 8-ball. Next medal presentations are for a gold medal winner or winners at the provincial level who represented Nanaimo at the 2024 55 plus games. Those were held in Salmon Arm. Will the gold medalists from archery, bowling, golf, mountain biking, and pickleball just come down to this area in front of me? The 2024 BC 55 plus games. Any athletes from those games in those categories? And I think there are quite a few of them. Well, we'll start with one. Vicky, come on down. Oh, please, no, you're fine where you are, Vicky, but I want to introduce you so the people know who they're clapping for. This is Vicky Adamson, gold medal at the 55 plus games last year, and that was for mountain biking in the women's relay. Vicky, congratulations. We also have a number of athletes from that event that could not join us this evening. I want to quickly acknowledge them. Linda Charbonneau for a 5-pin bowling, high scratch single. Karan Knight, pickleball, 3.5 doubles. Bob O'Brien for men's archery, target barebow, and Janice Uvanil for women's golf. Those recipients could not be with us, unfortunately, this evening. Let's acknowledge them, please. Thank you. Next, gold medalists from the women's 65-plus slow pitch in the 55-plus games. Do we have a number of slow pitch participants, please? I see a couple of faces I recognize. From the Thorpe Report, it's quite possible. It's quite possible.
In 19.
All right, women's slow pitch, gold medal winners. We'll start with Shelley Cantillon. Shelley, please. And next we have Lynn Scarsbrook. Lynn. Hey, good to see you. Nancy Stern. Come on, Nancy. Well done. And also from slow pitch, Susan Toth. Susan. And we also had 2 gold medalists from women's 55-plus soccer that could not be here tonight. I'd like to recognize Annette Noble and Leslie White. Next, gold medalists from men's 70-plus soccer and mixed 70-plus soccer. Please come over to this area. I think I saw several here. Come on, you soccer players. Let's get down here. We're going to start with Wayne McConney. Wayne. Good to see you. And next is Les McGrath. Barry Murphy. Well done. Next is Alan Parker. Alan, congratulations. Well done. And Jack Stevens. Longtime soccer coach and volunteer, Jack Stevens. Well done, everybody from soccer. And we'd also like to acknowledge 3 athletes from soccer who could not be with us tonight: Doug Cowling, Scott McLean, and Ron Reynolds. Next, gold medalists from swimming. Could we please have the swimmers come down? I think these ladies have been here before. I recall them from last year. First, Nancy Ryan. Nancy, congratulations. Please. Nancy won gold in women's 200-meter freestyle, women's 4x25-meter medley relay, and 4x25-meter freestyle relay. And Joanne Van Oosten, please. Van Oosten, a very well-known name in swimming circles in Nanaimo. Joanne won gold in the women's 25-meter freestyle, 50-meter freestyle, 25-meter medley relay, 4x25-meter freestyle relay, and the mixed 4x50-meter freestyle relay. Well done, Joanne. And from swimming, a pair of athletes who could not be with us this evening, Carleen Clapman, who won a number of gold medals, women's 100-meter backstroke and 100-meter breaststroke, 100-meter freestyle, 200-meter freestyle, 100-meter individual medley, women's 4x25-meter medley relay, and 4x25-meter freestyle relay. Carleen Clapman, well done for you. And also not able to be with us this evening, unfortunately, is Philip de Ritter, who won gold in men's, or mixed rather, 4x50-meter freestyle relay. Philip de Ritter. Folks, our next medal presentation is for a gold medal winner at the provincial level who represented Nanaimo at both the 2024 BC Summer Games and also the BC Athletics Provincial Track and Field Jamboree. And I'm really sorry that at the last minute she has come down with a little bit of an illness and not able to be here this evening, and that is Tessa Bell. Could we have a round of applause, please, for Tessa? I would just like to acknowledge that Tessa won triple jump at the BC Summer Games. She also won triple jump and pentathlon at the BC Athletics Provincial Track and Field Jamboree. Excellent performance. And thank you. Next, gold medal winners at a provincial level. The following athletes represented Nanaimo Gymnastics at the 2024 BC Provincial Championships. Could we have Blake Fudge and Gianna Phillips come forward, please? And we'll start with Blake Fudge. Blake. Congratulations. Blake won gold in level 7, first all-round, and first gold on bars at apparatus finals. And Gianna Phillips. Gianna. Congratulations. Well done. Gold medal for Gianna on level 6, first all-round, gymnastics. And one athlete who was involved in gymnastics but could not be here this evening, let's recognize Tatum DeShutter, level 9 gold at apparatus finals. Tatum DeShutter. And we turn now to rowing. Gold medal winner at a provincial level, represented the Nanaimo Rowing Club at the 2024 BC Summer Games. Could we have Cameron Catton-Cox come forward, please? Cameron won gold at the under-17 men's 1x1,000 meter gold medal race. Congratulations, Cameron. Next, everybody, gold medal winners at a provincial level. The following athletes were winners at the 2024 U17B Provincial Softball Championships, and I would ask that group of athletes to come down towards me, please. I think we have 4 of them here today. Let's start with Ava Edmondson. Ava, congratulations. Next, Rachel Evans. Congratulations. And we have assistant coach Curtis Slater. Well done. And Jessica Slater. Well done, Jessica. Now, folks, our next presentation is for gold medal winners at a provincial level. I think this is a very special one. The following athletes represented Dover Bay Secondary at the 2024 AAA Boys Basketball Provincial Championships. So could I have those individuals come down and just assemble in front of me, please? We've got a number of players and coaches. Gold medal winners for boys basketball at the provincial level do not come along very often, and in fact, to my memory, it's only happened 3 times. The first was back in 1978, which was NDSS, led by the Kazanowski brothers, and then it happened in 2007, I believe. You gentlemen probably know better than me, and that was the Dover Bay team, of course. The year before this, 2023, if I'm correct, Dover Bay were runners-up in the provincial championship. They came back strong in 2024 and won it all. So congratulations, Dover Bay Senior Boys Basketball. So with us here tonight, we'll start with Joe Linder. Joe, congratulations. And assistant coach Michael Linder. Mike. Next, James McGuire. The head coach for the team, Darren Seaman. And we have assistant coach Curtis Slater. Next, Van Suter. And Hudson Trude. Hudson. Good job. And folks, I'd like to acknowledge the other athletes from that very special team who could not be in attendance for tonight's event. Braxton Abney, Arden Alfonso, Shahal, Oyama Crouch, Manmeet Gurm, Marcus Lee, Frank Linder, Tarman Sandhu, Evan Slater, and Andril Sudkov. Congratulations to the entire team. A tremendous accomplishment. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. This concludes the Civic Sport Merit Awards for tonight. On behalf of City Council, congratulations again to all recipients on their achievements. Thank you for attending. These people have done our city proud, and we do encourage any 2025 gold medalists to register online so that you can be recognized 1 year from now. In closing, my appreciation to city staff for organizing the program tonight, Darcy Osborne, Damon Johnson, Curtis McCormick, and others. Thank you very much, everybody. And our regular council meeting will start after we get the group photo taken, so just be patient for a couple of minutes. Thanks very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of council to order now. Starting a little late tonight. Apologies to everybody, but it was a pretty impressive show on tonight, seeing all these wonderful athletes from Nanaimo. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Before we continue, I'd like to remind everyone in the gallery that while an exception was made for clapping and encouragement during the previous presentation, going forward for the remainder of this meeting, cheering, jeering, or other disruptions will not be permitted. Welcome to the November 17th regular meeting of council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. As indicated, our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. All of council is here in attendance, no one attending electronically. Tonight's regular meeting of council is being held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. And if during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the question period sign-up sheet, which is on the table by the double doors to my left. Please note that the Council Procedure Bylaw states that questions will only be taken on staff reports, consent items, or other business items. I do have a bit of a spiel to read that I normally read with respect to cheering and jeering. I've already mentioned that, however, and that is to ensure that because the council chambers are a workplace, there are considerations council and staff must make to ensure that a safe work environment exists in accordance with WorkSafe BC regulations. That said, in instances where a speaker is being inappropriate or has exceeded their time limit, their microphone will be cut off. Similarly, if there are disruptions by any person in the gallery, they will be asked to stop, and if they do not comply, they may be asked to leave as permitted under Section 133 of the Community Charter. If necessary, council may call a recess in order to reset the environment of the council chambers. It is our belief that if everyone is respectful of these basic considerations, this meeting and future meetings will be more effective in furthering the business of the City of Nanaimo. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, and we have several tonight.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. For late items this evening, we have the removal of agenda item 15A.
Please, for a moment, maybe we'll let the folks come in and sit down and be quiet so we can carry on with the council business. Always good to see citizens out. All right, carrying on with the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So a late item this evening is agenda item 15A, the correspondence from Brian Say, nurse practitioner, for a letter of support request from council. We're actually removing that from the agenda this evening. The applicant has some information that was incorrect and they need to resubmit, so it'll appear on the next agenda. As well, agenda item 17B regarding Councillor Manley's motion regarding amendment to zoning bylaw number 4500. There is a couple of delegations, Bethany Ricker and Ryan Protak, Maintenance and Engineering Manager for Harnack Pacific Nanaimo Forest Products. They have signed up to speak to that item. Agenda item 16A, Councillor Thorpe, notice of motion, request to provincial government regarding the amendment to the current drug decriminalization policy is the addition to tonight's agenda, and the removal of agenda item 17A, consideration of deferred motion from Councillor Thorpe regarding a request that Island Health close the supervised consumption site at 250 Albert Street. That is being removed from the agenda, Your Worship, and that is it.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Mayor's report. I have a few items tonight. The first is the city is very proud to announce the grade 11 student and local artist Solana Vandeleurs' design has been selected for the 2026 street banners, marking the first time in the program's history that a youth artist has been chosen through a province-wide call specifically for artists aged 19 and under. The Street Banner program invited young artists across BC to help shape Nanaimo's streetscape through original artwork that reflects youth, identity, imagination, and insight. Solana's design was selected for its visual depth, rich symbolism, and heartfelt storytelling. So congratulations to her, and we all look forward to the installation of the banners. Reminding everyone that we are in the review process for the city's 2026 budget, which has begun. Preparations are underway for our 2026-2030 financial plan, with a number of opportunities for residents to review the details of the budget and ask questions during a budget-focused e-town hall debate. Council will begin reviewing draft budgets and project plans over the course of 3 special Finance and Audit Committee meetings on November 21st, November 28th, and December 3rd. All meetings are open to the public and will be held in the Van Crowlin Conference Centre Shaw Auditorium, where we're gathered tonight. The E-Town Hall will take place on Monday, December 1st, at 7 p.m. during the council meeting and will run for 1 hour. If necessary, an additional 30 minutes will be allocated, and residents can participate in the E-Town Hall in a number of ways, including on the city website at www.nanaimo.ca/etownhall, on Blue Sky, Instagram, and X using hashtag NanaimoTH, in the E-Town Hall event found on the city's Facebook page, www.facebook.com/cityofnanaimo, by calling 250-755-4251, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, or in person during the meeting. In addition, a form has been added to the Budget Talks advertisement in the November 19th and 26th edition of the Nanaimo News Bulletin, which residents can fill out and drop off at City Hall. And just a little reminder, as is obvious, the storm season is underway, and it's been making its way slowly. So around the home, when in your parks, on the roads, please try and be careful and sensible. Particularly on the roads during the snowfall, the city's first action is to plow and maintain Priority 1 routes, which are emergency routes in all major roads. Residential areas are typically plowed and maintained within 96 hours unless snow and icy conditions return plow crews back to Priority 1 routes. Roads can become narrower as plows push snow to the sides. To help, residents can park in their driveways or on even sides of the road on even-numbered days and on odd sides of the road on odd-numbered days. Wish to confirm the announcement of the utility replacement, streetscape improvements planned for 3rd Street Corridor. Upgrades are focused on asset renewal, safety, and accessibility. We're undertaking this major infrastructure renewal along the 3rd Street Fitzwilliam Corridor. The project focuses on replacing aging water mains and sanitary sewers, along with adding in a rain garden next to the Cat Stream and other stormwater features. Other planned improvements include raised cycling lanes and sidewalks on both sides of 3rd Street, and safer intersections for pedestrians at Howard Avenue and Watfield and Georgia Avenue. Intersection upgrades will improve safety and accessibility, particularly for those with mobility challenges. A new pedestrian signal will be installed at Howard Avenue. New crosswalks will be added at Watfield Avenue and Georgia Avenue, and the intersection will be reconstructed at Pine to enhance pedestrian and cyclist safety. Construction is ongoing now and expected to be completed by late fall 2026, so we're in for a long period of time. Govern your driving habits accordingly. The city is committed to minimizing disruption and will maintain ongoing communication with residents and businesses throughout the construction period. However, there will be traffic delays and road closures throughout the project. Commuters should avoid the area if possible and plan alternate routes. And I just want to mention one of our shyest employees. He just celebrated 50 years of employment with the City of Nanaimo, John Kugzerski. Can't persuade him to be here tonight, couldn't persuade him to come to the Service Award dinner, but I have forced him to engage in some form of photo op at Public Works. I hope he'll show up after work instead of just skittering home. But that kind of devotion and the expertise he brings to the city is something to be admired and respected. He is regarded by his fellow workers as one of the best operators we have, and on behalf of council and the citizens of the City of Nanaimo, we want to extend our heartfelt congratulations and deep appreciation for his 50 years of dedicated service since March 27, 1975. His commitment, his professionalism, they've left an enduring impact, And I'm even more happy to announce, in a time when it's sometimes challenging to find good people, he has not announced his retirement. So we are safe for a little while yet. Congratulations, John. Now, we have nothing to rise and report on. No presentations, committee minutes are just a receipt, no motion required. Motion for adoption of the consent items, unless there's something someone wants removed from them. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We do have a delegation tonight. Mr. Holden Southward, re-increased lawlessness in the city. Mr. Southward, you're familiar with the drill. 5 minutes. When there's 1 minute left, I'll let you know. And if you can just introduce yourself for the purposes of the record, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hello, honorable councilors and mayor. Thank you for having me. This is about lawlessness in Nanaimo, and
If you could just introduce yourself for the record, seriously.
Holden Southward.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I'll just start off with, well, for example, like just a little while ago, there was an incident in, well, I'm not going to say what grocery store it is, but anyway, so this guy had this whole cart of food, canned goods, and everything like this, and then the employees were following him outside the store, and you know, I'm just coming to the store, so the guy's wheeling away a bunch of food, and they're trying to intervene, but obviously they're not allowed to. He's making threats with with his fist or something like this. So I just said to the guy next to me, well, let's go get the cart. So I'm not giving any details, but we went and got the cart and got it back. And but as I've spoke to a lot of people, this is just becoming more and more of a common theme where the criminal, or you know, the shoplifters are getting more and more bold, because it's a form of lawlessness, because a little bit to do with the laws and the situations that people are in. It's not just the homeless. I mean, if people are stealing, like, you know, like that guy had a lot of canned goods, but if people are, if steak is a premium, they're not cooking it on a campfire, they're taking it home. So they're stealing the steaks and everything, so they're not eating them raw. And then in front of John Barsby, because sometimes I go walking there, and between John Barsby and the lacrosse stadium, there's about 50 windows broken. And so I asked an employee there, you know, this is the summertime, last summer, and I just asked, well, what happened? He says, well, a gang of girls came along and broke them all. Oh, goodness, it was just like, and so then I asked later on another employee, and I said, so what happened? There's a camera there, and must have got somebody, you know, once somebody does something, out of 25 girls, somebody's going to be doing something stupid and talking on Facebook, but you know, nothing happened. So it does all these kind of things, sets a precedence and a boldness for, you know, the antithesis and people to come out, especially young people. In regards to petty theft like shoplifting to more serious crimes, the community itself must inform the youth in our educational facilities about the harm and tax burden this kind of culture has to our communities. This must be a community effort, but not with institutional or RCMP representations. Unfortunately, since institutionalization, parents have little authority over their kids, and parents are expected to release them into the environment like one would release a nurse back to health animal into the wild. Sometimes kids have to make their own mistakes in order to grow, but no matter, building self-respect in them is the best foundation to encourage being honest and polite later when life challenges come up. We must slowly start to replace the court system, starting with small disputes or divorce cases, because this adds to the disharmony in our society and it adds to homelessness. With a volunteer council, so this council will be one that would be volunteer, and people would go to them and give them submit to this council, and they'll give them instructions. The final papers can be signed by a professional lawyer, but they'd be more like counselors that would guide people.
1 minute, Mr. Southward.
What?
1 minute.
Okay, so anyway, so with a volunteer council, and they'd be called the seekers of the truth, and balance would start with 4 and voted by the public once the system is known. This council will also be instructed for judging what kind of penance would be suitable for certain small crimes, as well as many people have gotten away with crimes or cases in courts that were dismissed, but the crimes still did happen. This organic council can be discreet like priests and suggest penance like volunteer work for those whom would like to be honest without disrupting their functional lives. I see the homeless as a serious drug users more of a victims of ever-failing society. Many, I'm sure, were made homeless by malevolent divorce court lawyers whom specialize in winning the argument, but not the truth. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any questions for the delegation? I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Southward.
Come on.
The next is item 12, Administrative Reports, 2026 Council and Committee Key Date Calendars. Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before you this evening is a report titled 2026 Council and Committee Key Date Calendars, and this is in accordance with Section 46.1 of the Council Procedure Bylaw that states that prior to December 31st each year, a key date calendar for council meetings and public hearings for the upcoming year is prepared in accordance with the procedure bylaw. Also, as well, Section 127 of the Community Charter states that we have to schedule a calendar of meetings for the year and for that to be made public. So before you this evening is a combined calendar, is attachment A, which outlines the meetings for not only council, but your governance and priorities committee meetings, your finance and audit committee meetings, your advisory committee meetings, as well as design advisory panel and board of variance meetings. So it kind of shows like a compact calendar of all of your meetings that you will have for next year in one calendar, as well as the separate calendars for each. So we're hoping for a recommendation is for a motion from council this evening to support the key date calendars that have been proposed and are attached to your agenda. One more note is that in your report, there is a table that outlines any adjustments or any anomalies that are not in accordance with the bylaw. So our bylaw outlines that council meetings will be the first and third Monday of each month. So when there's a statutory holiday, there are some changes, and there's a table of those changes that are outlined in the report, as well as there are slightly less meetings next year because there is the general election in October. So there's a couple less meetings, regular council meetings, than in a normal year.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Gurry? If not, someone care to make the recommended motion? Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Brown. Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. 12B, the 2026 Acting Mayor Schedule. Again, Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as the previous report outlined, once a year we must bring forward an acting mayor schedule for council to consider in advance of the next year, and this is in accordance with the council procedure bylaw as well as the community charter, where in the absence of a mayor, we do have to assign an acting mayor to step up and be in place to replace you should the need be, as well as they stand in for you at governments and priorities committee meetings and other duties as required. So that is Section 130 of the Community Charter, and a calendar, again, is proposed for your consideration as Attachment A, and the timing of the acting mayor is slightly shorter than normally because, again, of the election in 2026 in October.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Gurry? If not, move the recommended motion. Councillor Prino, seconded Councillor Manley. Do you have a question, Councillor Manley?
Yeah, I just have a question about, I know I'm going to be away for a little while next August, and what is the process for switching out during that time?
Via motion right now, you could request a counselor switch a date with you, and/or you can propose that later, and we can make the adjustment at that time.
Okay. Councillor Brown just offered to switch with me, which means I'd be coming up in January.
So with the amendment of Counselor Manley and Counselor Brown switching their time slots, then you could move, you could vote on the motion as with that amendment, if you're amenable.
If we're all in agreement, we can vote on the motion as amended. The gentlemen have swapped. Sounds good. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is the City Plan Review 2025. Mr. Holm, Ms. Brinkman, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening to you, Your Worship and Council. And this is the first review of City Plan since it was adopted in 2022. If you'll remember, staff brought a report to Governance and Priorities Committee in July, outlining a number of items, housekeeping-related items that were intended to be updated in City Plan since its adoption to address minor housekeeping matters, some policy clarification, mapping updates, and as well as some council direction with respect to supportive housing, dispersion of supportive housing equally in the community, and as well as island corridor, connecting the island corridor to transit-oriented areas, transit exchanges. As well, the amendments look to align City Plan with provincially required transit-oriented area designation bylaw, 7382. So since that time, since July, staff have been working on preparing a bylaw, which is presented for Council's consideration tonight. And the summary of the proposed amendments are included in a table attached to the report as attachment A. And we're happy to take any questions on this. Ms. Brinkman, Manager of Community Planning, has led the review, and along with staff from many other areas in the city, supported the review, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Also, I should mention too that if the bylaw is given readings tonight, there'd be formal referrals to Ministry of Transportation and Transit, Nunavut First Nation, District of Lantzville, Regional District of Nanaimo, and looking to also, I guess, seek, there'd be a public hearing actually following if council were to give first and second reading to the bylaw, likely scheduled in January. Again, we're happy to take questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff on this one? I know council's had a chance to read the extensive material. Councillor Perino, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Recommendation is motion that City Plan Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 6600.002, Policy, Housekeeping, and Map Updates, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Perino.
Second one, motion that the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor.
Your Worship, I believe Counselor Eastmere would like to propose an amendment.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. I would like to amend section 2.2 of bylaw 6600.002 to be as follows. This is for section C2.2, integrated walk, roll, cycle, and transit network. Amended by replacing clause C2.2.25. And I provide...
I wonder, Councillor, if you could point out in the material where this exactly is.
Yeah, that's what I just said. It's clause C2.2.25.
And I think Your Worship staff is going to bring that up on the screen. It's attachment.
Please.
Attachment A.
Yeah.
What page of the material? That would be the most
I believe
helpful
it's
for
17
anybody.
in your... Oh. 70.
Right, I'm just saying, if you tell me where the page, I have 60.
We don't have pages on this one.
It might be
Oh, well, I
page-
know, that's because I'm old and primitive, but surely somebody has a hard copy.
Sorry, Your Worship, it'll just be one moment, they'll bring it up. So the bylaw actually has it, but there's also a table of the amendments, but I think the bylaw itself,
It's page
which
71 and
follows the
72.
report, Your Worship, so right after the report is the bylaw in your hard copy package.
Thank you, Councillor Perino knows where to go. Carry on.
Thank you. So section, 2.2.25, I'd like to amend it with the following. To preserve options for future mobility infrastructure, including transit in the ENN railway corridor, and seek opportunities to provide clear connections from the ENN railway corridor to urban centers and transit exchanges.
Only slightly different than the proposed amendment, which was from urban centers to the Ealing Railway Corridor.
It includes a couple of key, thank you. It includes a couple of key words that I think better reflect the intent of my motion that led to this amendment under the amendment rationale. So it better reflects that rationale.
Any discussion, Council?
Thank you. Yeah, I can read it again. It's to preserve options for future mobility infrastructure, including transit in the ENN railway corridor, and seek opportunities to provide clear connections from the ENN railway corridor to urban centers and transit exchanges.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to support. I think that the motion as is, or the proposed amendment as is, captures that because it's mobility infrastructure, but given that Councillor Eastmere is the mover and she wants this clarified, I'm happy to support her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I apologize. We did have the proposed amendment in writing. We're just having some technical issues getting it up on the screen. So my understanding is, well, Councillor Eastmere read it a couple of times, and so that is what we can
It's
provide
not a
that in writing
substantive
afterwards.
difference than what's in the material. On the amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On the main second reading,
So you're going to give second reading as amended, Your Worship.
as amended. Moved by Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Perino.
Sorry, Your Worship. So the next one is motion that council direct staff to refer City Plan Amendment 2025 bylaw number 6600.002 to the Agriculture Land Commission, the Ministry of Environment and Parks, the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, Snuneymuxw First Nation, District of Lanceville, and the Regional District of Nanaimo.
Second, moved to seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Perino.
And the last one is motion that following the referral process, council direct staff to arrange a public hearing for bylaw 6600.002 prior to the consideration of the third reading and final adoption.
Seconded Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to item D, general amendments to the zoning bylaw. Mr. Holm, once again, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the 11th proposed round of general amendments to bylaw 4500, the city zoning bylaw, since it was adopted in 2011. The last round of general amendments was March 2024. And what's proposed here, there's a table that summarizes the proposed amendments, but in a very brief summary, 3 site-specific text amendments, 19 mapping amendments, and the replacement of Schedule C watercourse and marine foreshore with updated mapping to address environmentally sensitive area detail refinement identified largely through development approval. Happy to take questions on this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Not seeing any.
Okay.
Councillor Perino?
Yes, Your Worship. Motion that zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2025, number 4500.243, general mapping and site-specific text amendments to the zoning bylaw pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And finally, motion that the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to development reports. Item 13, development variance permit application number DVP 488-205 7th Street. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to the development variance permit application number DVP 488-205 7th Street? Not seeing anyone. Someone care to make the recommended motion? Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Item 13B, rezoning application number RA 527-32 14th Street. Councillor Perino.
Motion that zoning amendment bylaw 2025, number 4500247, to rezone 32 14th Street from single-dwelling residential R1 to 3 and 4 unit residential R5 pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Motion that the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And finally, motion that council direct staff to satisfy the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2025, number 4500.247, as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report titled Rezoning Application Number RA 527-32 14th Street, dated 2025, November the 17th, prior to final adoption.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe.
Your Worship, did third reading happen?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it
No,
did.
I think that you just did first and second
Yes.
reading.
Oh,
No, we're
You're
on
right. You're right.
32 14th Street, and there's 3 readings
It's
plus.
third reading.
Yeah.
Ms. Gurry's quite right.
sorry, I was going on to final. Thank you. Third reading. Motion to, that the bylaw pass third reading.
Seconded. Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? Ms. Gurry, is it necessary to read out the motion, the final motion again? Probably. We didn't get to third reading.
So she doesn't have to read out the last direction to staff, but the third
Yes.
reading is fine, yeah, if that was read out, yeah.
Go ahead, read it again. Once
I
more,
don't
let's
mind
read it.
at all. My error. Thank you. Motion that council direct staff to satisfy the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2025, number 4500.247, as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report titled Rezoning Application Number RA 527-32 14th Street, dated 2025, November the 17th, prior to final adoption.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to item 14, bylaws. General Election Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7129.05.
Motion that the general election amendment bylaw number 2025, number 7129.05 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Now, Ms. Gurry, in terms of correspondence,
There is no correspondence any longer,
it's
Your
been
Worship.
withdrawn.
Yes.
And Councillor Thorpe is next, giving a notice of motion. Councillor Thorpe?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. That looks more promising. Thank you very much. I had made an earlier motion which was deferred until tonight's meeting, and I had asked that that motion be withdrawn. And in place of it, I would like to serve a notice of motion that I will bring this forward at the next council meeting. My notice of motion is that council send a letter to the provincial government asking it to re-examine its philosophy regarding the ongoing drug addiction crisis and resulting mental health and street disorder issues, stating that the current policy of decriminalization and enabling drug use at consumption sites is failing to provide effective long-term solutions for either those with addictions or for neighborhoods impacted by the problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry?
I have a notice. I've got a notice of motion, if I can talk after.
You're giving notice of a notice of motion.
No, I'm giving notice of motion.
Councillor Gesselbrock, why don't you just speak into the mic so we can all hear?
Oh, great, thanks. I apologize. I, for some reason, gapped out during the consent items, and I was going to pull the manufactured home item, but I do want to put a notice of motion that the manufactured home community relocation and assistance policy be amended to include an additional 25% payment of the assessed home buyout amount to participating homeowners be made within 180 days of rezoning approval.
You're moving it as a motion now, or giving it as a notice?
I'm giving it as a notice of a motion. Yeah,
For another
I missed it on the consent agenda, so it's a notice of motion to be debated in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, any other surprises from council? Thank you, I don't like surprises, it's not Christmas. All right, Councillor Manley, motion re-amendment to zoning bylaw number 4500. We do have a couple of delegations on this. The first is Bethany Ricker.
Should I speak to the motion first? I have an amended motion and speak to it before we have delegations.
Ms. Gurry?
So, Your Worship, we would normally hear from the delegations before considering the motion. However, it might be relevant for Councillor Manley to state what he will be amending, but not have it moved and seconded and put on the table until after the delegations.
Perhaps then Councillor Manley, with Ms. Gurry's support, go ahead, say a few words, please.
Okay. So this is the amended motion. It says that staff prepare a report with options on zoning amendment to bylaw 4500 that exclude emissions intense heavy industries such as waste energy, incinerators, chemical plants, thermal electrical generators, petroleum refineries, and liquid natural gas export facilities from existing industrial zones in order to require site-specific zoning.
So, Your Worship, that will be what will be considered after hearing from the delegations. So it has changed as to what was in the agenda and what the delegation signed up for, just so that they are aware before they speak that that will be what Councillor Manley will be moving.
So just so we're clear, and I'm being quite critical when I say this, there have been a number of little dropped bombs in this council meeting tonight, which is not the way to conduct business. So we are going to be debating a motion tonight which has only been proposed tonight. We have people here who have come at their inconvenience, no doubt, in order to either speak to or listen to a much longer motion. So just to be clear then, we will hear from the delegations. They'll now be speaking about a motion which is somewhat different than that which has been proposed. That motion is up on the screen, correct, Ms. Gurry?
Your Worship,
That is
it's actually
correct,
a
yeah.
much shorter motion.
So
It's a much.
I appreciate that, Councillor Manley. It is a much shorter motion, but nevertheless, it has attracted a great deal of community attention. We will now hear from Bethany Ricker, please.
Hello, my name is Dr. Bethany Ricker. I'm a family physician practicing here in Nanaimo. I'm co-chair of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment's BC Committee and a board member of the Nanaimo Climate Action Hub. I support this motion, which will protect the health of our community. Both medical evidence and lived experiences in already exposed communities demonstrate the health harms caused by toxic industry pollution. We see this in Dawson Creek, a community surrounded by methane gas extraction involving fracking and flaring. These activities release the same toxins outlined in this motion: benzene and other volatile organic compounds, nitrous oxides and sulfur dioxide, and particulate matter. These toxins are linked to maternal and infant health harms, such as increased rates of miscarriages, preterm birth, and birth defects, which lead to lifelong cardiac, respiratory, and neurodevelopmental conditions. These pollutions significantly increase the risk of asthma and other lung diseases. This is my colleague, Dr. Meyer, who has worked in Dawson Creek for over 20 years. She reported 10 new diagnoses of a normally very rare interstitial lung disease in their small community in just 2 years. In the same years, 23 out of 25 lung biopsies were positive for lung cancer. Benzene exposure causes cancers like childhood leukemia. Dr. Meyer also told me about a grade 2 class with 3 children battling cancer and about multiple cases of fatal glioblastoma brain cancers occurring in unusually young adults. The radiologist in Dawson Creek was shocked to see more glioblastoma cases there than in his 30 years working in Cape Town. Similar cautionary tales come from Kitimat. Since LNG exports began there in June, residents have reported foul burning smells, increased inhaler use, worsened shortness of breath, and nosebleeds. LNG flaring reaches 90 meters high, with visible smoke and soot settling on homes. Levels of nitrogen dioxide and sulfur dioxide already exceed Canadian guidelines there. Even at acceptable levels, these exposures pose risks to vulnerable people, such as those with lung disease, pregnant people, children, and the elderly. Burnaby's waste-to-energy incinerator is another example. Independent testing recently found dangerous levels of dioxins and heavy metals within 500 meters of the facility. Dioxins are potent carcinogens and endocrine disruptors that accumulate in the body over time, even with low-level exposures, harming neurological and reproductive development, especially in children. Downwind, New Westminster recorded the worst nitrogen dioxide levels in BC, worsening cardiovascular and respiratory disease. Racialized communities disproportionately bear the health consequences of industrial development while receiving few of its benefits. In northeastern BC, biomonitoring near fracking sites shows higher benzene levels in the tap water and air in the homes of Indigenous women compared to their non-Indigenous counterparts. A recent US study linked air pollution from oil and gas to 90,000 premature deaths and 10,000 preterm births annually, with minority groups bearing a disproportionate burden. Here, the Snuneymuxw Nation already experiences emissions from the Harmac pulp mill nearby. Cumulative exposures would compound existing risks. These harms are not limited to local air pollution. These pollutants also worsen climate change, the greatest threat to our health of the 21st century.
1 minute.
Here in Nanaimo, our healthcare system is already strained. Long ER wait times, beds in hallways, overworked nurses, desperate attempts to access urgent and primary care, and misdiagnoses because of these limitations. Climate change has added to this burden. I have done home visits for patients suffering in extreme heat exhaustion in safe, uncooled housing. I've seen patients' inhaler use increase and activity decrease in wildfire smoke season. And the last thing we need is more industrial pollution, increasing preventable illness, and overwhelming our healthcare system. As we build our new cancer center, let's avoid exposing our local populations to undue risks of requiring its services. We already have enough cancer patients waiting. And I think that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for Dr. Ricker? Councillor Manley?
Thank you. They say the solution to pollution is dilution, but what happens when you get multiple outlets for pollution when you get saturation levels?
When assessing any exposures to a community, a health impact assessment should be cumulative. So that means consideration of the variety of pollutants that a certain town or community is exposed to. So as an example, in Kitimat, one of the communities mentioned, they already have had the Alcan aluminum smelter present in their community for many years. And now with the addition of the LNG export facility there and the proposed addition of LNG Canada Phase 2 and Cedar LNG, this area is becoming a sacrifice zone, essentially. You can argue that each individual project has undergone environmental assessment, but there has not at all been a cumulative health impact assessment for this community of the collective exposures. So if we're thinking about further industry in our community, I have no reassurance that there's a precedent that communities undertake a cumulative approach to assessing the health impacts.
You talked about persistent organic pollutants like dioxin. Can you just talk a little bit about what the problem with that is with bioaccumulation and how that works with humans and food chain?
Bioaccumulation means that small exposures or any exposures over time gradually accumulate in the human body. So meaning even if the reported level of a dioxin or a certain pollutant is reportedly low at a given point in time, it takes a very long period of time for that pollutant to work its way through the natural ecosystem and through the human body. So this is especially dangerous for children, even for fetuses in utero, because of their long duration of their life, where they'll be exposed to these pollutants. So dioxin, is taken up through the ecosystem, through fish, through the water, through fish, through what we eat, and accumulates in the human body over time.
Thank you. And could you outline what the problems are with nitrogen oxide and sulfur dioxide with respiratory?
Yeah, nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide, among many others, are pollutants that certainly cause irritation of the airways in the short term, and in the long term do cause inflammatory disorders of the airways. So we're thinking about COPD, asthma, and even over time are taken up in the bloodstream to cause concerns with the cardiovascular system. So predisposing us to high blood pressure, to strokes, to heart attacks. So there's some clear medical risks to these pollutants.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to the delegation? Thank you very much. We have the motion back up on the screen then, please, that is proposed for tonight's debate. Oh, sorry, pardon me, yes. How could I forget? Ryan Prontak, Maintenance and Engineering Manager, Harmac Pacific Nanaimo Forest Products. Mr. Prontak, good evening. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, Worship and Council, thanks for having me. Representing the Nanaimo Forest Products today, and we've got a significant delegation that takes this motion very serious. We've been operating the Harmac Pacific Pulp Mill since 2008 now with our employee ownership model. We've got our two main products, kraft pulp that we export to world markets, and biomass power, which we sell and generate and sell to BC Hydro. While this motion represents many different activities we currently do, it also represents many that we have plans to diversify in the future, and I think is an important part of the business model, and should maintain something that I4 industrial land should be able to participate in. In addition, we make continuous upgrades all the time to our existing equipment. These might incorporate additional approvals, but also it has the opportunity to reduce the amount of environmental impact we have already. So in addition to what we already operate, we have about 150 acres of I4 land currently zoned, ready to develop, and we have 200 acres of land that we're in the
If you want to lean more into the mic, I think would be appreciated.
Oh, there we go, for sure.
Thank you.
There we go, perfect. So yeah, I just wanted to go through a few slides here. This year was created from Forestry Works, which is a group of 1,000 businesses and that participate in the forest industry in BC. I don't want to go through all these numbers, but what I want to focus on is the fact they've got $9 billion in wages, salary, and benefits that are brought to the province through forestry. The biggest concern with this number is that about 8 years ago, it would be twice as large as it is now. We're seeing a large amount of forestry and other industries moving to other jurisdictions where there's more interest and support for industry. Now, this is a major problem, obviously, for the economy in BC because a lot of the revenue comes from that industry. And we're going to see that capital continue if we don't get support. This next slide brings it a little more closer to home. This is local contributors. So Nanaimo Forest Products, Coastland, and Western Forest Products and 2 Point Mills combined to spend over $250 million in providing logs and other fiber that's needed to support the plants. You know, this goes directly to contractors, suppliers, and all the service providers that you'd expect. In addition, it's almost 700 employees and $83 million in annual payroll. Now, I guess what we're looking at is if this motion was passed, you know, what do you see in 10, 20 years, the economy looking like in this area? You know, and something to think about is just this next slide while we kind of answer that question. This here is a graph provided by Don Wright. And so Don Wright was Deputy Minister and Head of Public Services from 2017 to 2020 in BC here. And he saw something in 2019 that was a trend towards focusing on technology, tourism, film. So lighter industry type zonings. And what he saw, and he commissioned this report, which looks at the provincial revenue per employee, is that you're just not getting the same revenue per job that's created. And so this is the concern that we have, and I think we all should have, is that while we totally support improving environmental performance in every way that we can, and we invest heavily in that, we do need to keep in mind that it's things like resource industries that provide revenue to BC and Nanaimo specifically. And we enjoy a lot of the, the quality of life and standard of living we have in Nanaimo from these kinds of activities. So, in conclusion, just want to sum up and say that, industry is already highly regulated in BC. And if we say no right off the bat to these opportunities, it doesn't give technology the chance to correct and find solutions for these problems. I mean, if you look at Harmac as an example, we've come a long way in the 75 years that it's been available, and we've made great strides to improve as technology develops. And so I think that's what we're looking at, is we want to see, the BC Ministry of Environment make the big hard decisions about where's the technology at, looking at these, cumulative effects, which is a good point, and making that scientific-based decision for all of BC, because industry needs stable, consistent decision-making in order to make investments. So, we think the regulatory framework is there already, and, we want to see it be supported. So, yeah, we don't support this motion, and we hope you won't as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Perino, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship, and a question through you. Am I pronouncing it right? Is it Pontac?
Prontac.
Prontac. Thank you for being here, and great presentation. I've always felt that Harmac was a company that we're very proud of, and the work that you do is very inspiring. I'm just wondering, have you, throughout your career, seen incredible move as far as what Harmac does to improve environmentally? Can you speak to that just a bit?
For sure. I mean, I've been there 20 years, and so I've seen huge strides myself and been part of many of them. But even beyond that, we can see the investments that have been made over the years. Our secondary treatment plant, was a little bit before my time, but $65 million was spent. Huge strides there. We continue to make big investments today, so we're seeing it on a regular basis.
Do you feel like you have a long ways to go still to get where you want to? Is it a continual process, or you feel you're there? Or?
It is a continual process. I mean, we are meeting all the regulations now, but we continually strive to be ahead of it so that when new regulations come out, we're ahead of the curve.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I missed your comments about biomass.
Yeah, so we do our secondary product. Primary product is kraft pulp, but we also produce electricity from biomass. So we burn bark in our boilers, create steam, and then sell that power to BC Hydro.
And is it correct that the provincial government as well as the federal government want to see more biomass being done, as it's a good way for heat, et cetera?
That's right. 20% of our electricity is imported currently, primarily from natural gas sources. So, BC Hydro is interested, the provincial government's interested in seeing more power being generated from bark and renewable fuels
Thank you. And you're prepared to expand that program?
We are. It's a big part of our business and one that we're excited to expand in the future.
And just one further question on that. Would that bring more employment as well? Like, would you have to add to your employee base, which is already a pretty decent one?
For sure, yeah. If we can add, a lot of these opportunities we're looking at for diversification. A lot of them are, add-ons to our existing business, but they have synergies, so they do create other employment opportunities for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Eastmere, then Councillor Manley.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. I guess the main concern, there's the current operations, and I don't believe that the motion proposed impacts current operations, and I do think that it is looking for future operations, have it come to council for a change of use, basically. And I think the large concern is around incineration, and even the biomass like waste to energy basic functions. I know the technology has come a long way. I think it was in 2014 there was a garbage incinerator that was proposed for out at Duke Point, and people freaked out, and it was shut down, and it was quite a long process because it required, there wasn't a formal democratic process locally to deal with it. They had to just letter write in and people being really upset and letting it be known. So I think that's the concern, and expanding with the biomass, I guess to what scale would be considered if that is the plans, and are there other options as well for Harmac's expansion into these areas? Like, my understanding is that Harmac could expand in these new industrial lands, but it's also open to other proponents that have different industrial ideas to utilize the space as well. And I think what's being proposed is a bit cautionary. So I guess my comment is like, how much more would be the biomass expansion that would be considering, and are also consideration to basically sell plots of industrial land to other users that would bring their own ideas for incineration and that type of thing?
Yeah, so to answer that question, a little bit of both. Is our intention to develop a private industrial park where we maintain ownership of the land? And so that does give that local opportunity to do what's in our interests, and also the communities. But to your point, existing operations may not be the target, but we constantly need to invest and upgrade and find ways to diversify. Every year chemical costs go up. We've got to find ways to maintain our competitive edge. And so if we need to do add-on opportunities, whether it be additions to biomass or partners with other companies that have opportunity, we want to be able to work with Ministry of Environment and find those environmental solutions that exist and have been based on scientific evidence and approved across the province. And we want to use that as our forum to decide what makes sense, not on an individual case-by-case basis. We can't make investments based on what council feels on a day-to-day. It's too difficult.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm just wondering, would you support there being some kind of democratic process at the municipal level to look at these industries that could affect air quality for residents to ensure that we're not saying yes to something that's going to have harmful health impacts to residents?
I don't know if I can answer that exactly, but I guess what I would say is, I'm just trying to look broadly across the province, and if every industry had to have a separate process every time they wanted to do something in every city, it doesn't feel like that would encourage investment in BC. So I think that could be a problem.
I understand trying to balance those things. And just to reiterate, that the bylaw change wouldn't impact your current operations.
Sorry, the bylaw, well, like you say, it might not impact what we're doing exactly today, but we do need to make investments and make changes to our operation to maintain competitiveness over the next 10, 15 years. So it will impact us.
Of the items listed, the waste to energy, chemical plants, thermal electricity generation, petroleum refineries, liquefied natural gas, is there one of those that you're angling more towards where you would support the other items, like chemical plants that produce emissions containing volatile organic compounds? Like, could you see why we would want to restrict something like that?
I see your point, but again, the Ministry of Environment is there to make those tough decisions with science-based experts. We think that decision should maintain in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation tonight. I'm actually quite aware of what Harmac does, and I know that, you know, that big changes have been made since the 50s in terms of emissions and reduction by about 90% or above 90%. And I was a big supporter of Harmac when we had the trade war, the initial trade war with Donald Trump, and made the trade minister connected Chrystia Freeland with Levi Sampson and Paul Sadler, because you guys do make PPE, paper that's important for PPE. So this motion is not intended to affect current operations. I am concerned about the cumulative effect of emissions. Can you tell me what are the current sulfur dioxide emissions for the mill now? What's your target?
No, I can't tell you that offhand right now.
Okay, it's 25 parts per million. That's what I found on your website. Do you know what the target is, the Canadian Ambient Air Quality Standards target is for the Canadian government?
Can't say I can.
It's 70 parts per billion, far less. And that's peaks, and you know, with a maximum annual average of 5 billion parts per billion, which is significantly lower. So my concern, I will explain it when I get a chance to debate this, but my concerns are really around what other proponents could bring to industrial land in Nanaimo and the cumulative effects on our airshed and the air that people breathe. So thank you for your time. Thank you for coming down.
Could we have the motion pulled up, please, the one that we may be debating tonight? I'm not finished with Mr. Prontak. I want him to have a look at the motion, seeing as how this room is filled with people who came tonight to hear debate on a motion that they weren't aware of was happening. If my disappointment is not clear, it should be by now. Mr. Prontak, do you want to take a moment to read that motion?
All right.
Would you be prepared to support council in voting in favor of that motion? I know it's an unfair question.
No, we would not.
Thank you very much. And can you advise council, to your knowledge and your position as the maintenance and engineering manager, whether Harmac is currently in compliance with all federal and provincial regulations that govern the operation of the mill?
I can confirm that we are.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for the delegation? Not seeing any. Mr. Prontak, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Manley, are you going to move that motion?
I'd like to move that motion that staff prepare a report with options on zoning amendments to bylaw 4500 that exclude emissions-intense heavy industries such as waste-to-energy incinerators, chemical plants, thermal electrical generators, petroleum refineries, and liquid natural gas export facilities from existing industrial zones in order to require site-specific zoning.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Gesselbrock, you care to speak to it?
Sure. So this motion ensures that future proposals for emissions-intense industries will have to go through site-specific zoning. When I added that site-specific zoning portion, it's actually redundant because we cannot prohibit anything in our zoning. What we can do is ensure that we have a democratic process that involves staff reports, public hearings, consultations with and support from Nanaimo First Nation, and approval from Nanaimo City Council. This motion doesn't affect Harmac's current operations, and it doesn't affect the Nanaimo Port Authority. And it's not about blocking industry uses in perpetuity. It's about ensuring that we have a proper democratic process to evaluate project proposals. Currently, we have a carte blanche, anything goes approach to zoning of industries that could add toxins to our airspace. And for example, we could have a foreign multinational, we could have a Chinese state-owned corporation or Dow Chemical buy land at Duke Point and propose to have an industrial facility there, a waste-to-energy burning garbage from Metro Vancouver to fire a petrochemical plant like a chromium plant. And Nanaimo residents and City Council would not be able to stop them without costing Canadian taxpayers millions of dollars. And that's under current investor-state dispute settlement provisions of international trade and investment treaties and other legal requirements. The reason why I'm bringing this motion forward is the health concerns outlined by the doctor, our democratic authority over local decision-making, zero waste, working towards proper solutions for zero waste, environmental racism, and climate change. So we've had the doctor talk about volatile organic compounds, such as benzene, which causes cancer, nitrous oxides and sulfur dioxides, which cause all kinds of respiratory problems. These are not things we want our citizens to be breathing. We talked about persistent organic pollutants, dioxins and furans that remain in our environment, go up the food chain, and basically poison us. They cause immune problems, nervous and cardiovascular system problems, and cancers. So the precautionary principle means that we need to be able to make these decisions and look at cumulative effects and be able to get environmental assessments and health assessments as part of our process to determine what goes into our zoning. And under current trade agreements, there's provisions called investor-state dispute settlement provisions. If you have open zoning and then you block a company from doing something that you don't want it to do because it's going to affect the health of your residents, that is called indirect expropriation under these investment treaties. And that can be used as discriminatory practices, and it costs, you have to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars for the loss of potential profit when you stop a corporation from doing something. Canadian government has used Canadian taxpayer dollars to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars in these investor-state dispute settlements. We have 38 foreign investment promotion and protection agreements with countries around the world, including with China, and with the China-Canada FIPA, which was signed by the Harper government in 2012, both parties need to agree to have the tribunal rulings made public. These tribunals happen behind closed doors with elite lawyers who switch places, sometimes to the judge, sometimes they work for the corporation, and sometimes they're working for the country. And they flip around, and hundreds and millions of dollars have been paid out by the Canadian government, and billions of dollars have been paid out worldwide. And what they do is they erode democratic processes. So if we had a Chinese state-owned corporation, and Chinese state-owned corporations like PetroChina are buying, up assets all over Canada that had a dispute because they wanted to put a chromium plant or some other thing at Duke Point, and we said no, we wouldn't even know how much money Canadian taxpayers paid out on that dispute. That's how bad this situation is. So what I'm asking for is some democratic control in this situation. We have a zero waste policy at the regional district in Nanaimo, so we don't want to be burning garbage from other jurisdictions. If you build a garbage incinerator, we're going to be importing garbage to burn garbage here, and that is just not appropriate. We've had 3 of those incinerators proposed, and I remember the last one, a couple of NDP MLAs marched in protest against it. I don't know if His Worship was there, but it definitely Doug Routley was, because people did not want that here. We had a chromium plant proposed. Remember Aaron Brock?
I think there is a 3-minute limit on things, so perhaps you could
sure
come to a conclusion, please.
we've also heard about environmental racism, about how these things are concentrated in areas near reserves. And the closest communities to our industrial zone are Nanaimo Reserve 2, 3, and 4, and areas A and B. And I think Nanaimo needs to have a voice in any of these kind of big proposals that come to town that would involve polluting the airshed that their community breathes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong, then Councillor Brown, then Councillor Gusselbrook.
Thank you. I struggle with this because I actually do believe in waste energy incineration, and I noticed that Tsleil-Waututh Nation in Vancouver is partnering with a firm to bring that to the nation. So many nations are using these, and it's heavily used in Scandinavia. I have a problem with when we're going into, in my opinion, into provincial territory, because emissions are environmental, which belongs to the federal and provincial governments. So I'm also very concerned about the loss of jobs. Site-specific zoning is very time-consuming, and already we struggle to get businesses to come to this community. We have a huge child poverty issue, and I think by a lot of this would make that issue even stronger. Like as Mr. Gates has said, 500,000 died from heat, but millions died from poverty and not food. So at this time, I'm not prepared to support that because of that it's exclude. If it would have been impact, fine. I also believe that consultation should have been done previously with the First Nations, who have a big interest in possibly moving forward on some of these projects, which wasn't done. So for those reasons, I can't support the motion at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm just having trouble understanding the structure of the motion a little bit, because I'm hearing that it's not intended to impact existing.
It's a report.
I get that it's asking for a report, and I appreciate the change. It just says we ask for zoning or a report around how to exclude emission-heavy industries from existing industrial zones in order to require site-specific zoning. So, like, my read of that would be that it directly impacts Harmac, but then I'm hearing that it's not. So I'm just trying to figure out what the exact intention is.
Well, Harmac would be a non-conforming use.
Okay.
If they're existing. You can't.
Gentlemen, I appreciate it's nice for you to have a discussion between the two of you, but this is a public meeting, and I'd appreciate it if we're going to have
So
a back.
through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Manley, if he could please provide clarity on the structure of his motion.
Thank you. Yeah, no, Harmac is an existing use, so you couldn't, we can't do anything about existing emissions or existing operations at Harmac. That's, it would be a change to the bylaw for future uses. It would be a non-conforming use.
Okay, so thank you.
It's already had a site-specific, it's done.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so thank you.
Any of these could be done in the future.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I think, ultimately, I think this is an interesting conversation because, we had the data center, and that's gained some attention, and that was a very, site-specific use, and there's, people have been saying, no, it's not a good use for Nanaimo, and now we're talking about a different industry, a more legacy industry, and, I think there would be a lot of people that say, oh, we don't want this use in Nanaimo either. So I think it's very valid comments when we start to ask, does industry even have a place in Nanaimo? Like, that seems to be the conversation, and ultimately that can be problematic because you do need industry. So I think I'll support getting a report, but ultimately I know what it's going to come back to us, and the options are really you remove these from the particular zones. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think ultimately it's just to decide are we going to make every industry a site-specific question in front of council or not, and that's kind of the matter in front of us, so. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gisselbrock, then Councillor Prino, then Councillor Thorpe.
Thanks, Mayor. How I see this is like it provides some guardrails over the type of industry that we want to see invested in the community and not. We're looking to open up a huge swath of industrial land that we greatly need. There's a huge demand for it, and I'm not concerned that we're going to have industries coming to fill it up and produce jobs and good paying jobs for the community. But there are certain industries that may have a big payoff initially or that could be considered. And waste to energy and garbage incinerators are one of those. And we've gone through as a community this rigmarole, you know, in 2014 when Metro Vancouver had a bunch of money and wanted to go with a private company and put a big incinerator in. And yeah, people in Cedar don't want to see that. People in Gabriola, it's like nobody wants to have that particulate coming down. And despite the technologies that are available, there is quite a lot of particulate still in it, and it is a consideration. And technology could get better, and that's great, and we should always be open to it. And that's why having something like this, it can still be a site-specific use if it's good for the community. And this is a very narrow range of industries. Like I'm very excited, like for example, GRT Resources out at Duke Point, that's taking contaminated soils and basically turning it into clean aggregate and reducing about 97% of the waste that goes to landfills while cleaning soils. And there's a lot of different options. So waste to energy incinerators, yes. You know, petroleum refineries, yeah, we could probably safely say that we don't really want a petroleum refinery in Duke Point. And so maybe there's a good case for it, and it can come to the community and have a discussion on it. I think Harmac is a pride and jewel for the community. I think having a worker-owned industrial outfit like that is something that we can be extremely proud of, and I would like to see it diversify and expand, and don't want to any way limit that possibility. But I think we do have to do it in a way that's mindful of like where things are going. We are having to limit the amount that we burn into the atmosphere. Like we are hitting critical limits, and there's no way around that. And so I think we just have to accept that reality and be mindful and considerate how we proceed. And I don't think this would overly narrow the choices of diversification that we can have. It doesn't close the door to bioenergy, and I think so. At the very minimum, having a staff report on it, I think would give a lot of people peace of mind, and especially there's a lot of people concerned about just opening up industrial land in general out there, and I think having something like this can really strongly make the case as like, folks, don't worry, we need the industrial land, and we've clearly stated that there are some uses that we are going to have an additional step of community supervision on that will come, and there'll be a democratic debate around it before we proceed, and there's a very narrow window. So I support the staff report and curious what it has to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Prino.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't be supporting this motion, mostly because although respectfully it does ask staff to prepare a report, but I wouldn't be voting for it at that stage either. And the reason is that, I asked Mr. Prontak the question, do you follow federal and provincial mandates as far as Ministry of Environment and everything that is required to operate a company like Harmac as safely as possible? And the answer is yes. We are outside, once again, of our lane. We are a municipality. We do not take care of these issues. These kinds of industrial companies and businesses, they need to get federal and provincial endorsement, not us. They're the experts. They have the people to ensure that the work is done. And a company like Harmac, who continually tries to make sure that they're operating the very best that they can, the best possible environmental assessments are done to make sure that whatever they're doing, it's for the betterment of their community. I mean, every one of the people in this room, everyone who works at Harmac, They have families too. They want what is best. This is not our lane. We need to work on municipal work, not provincial or federal. This is a perfect bylaw for provincial. Let them deal with it. When it gets to us, then we can decide whether or not we want the companies here. But if I know that the federal level has assessed a business as a good, solid, safe business, and the provincial level has assessed the business as a good, solid, safe business, who am I to sit here and decide whether or not it's right? It's not appropriate. This is not our work, and I just feel like once again we are just stepping into the provincial side and trying to do their work for them, and I don't think it's appropriate, so I won't be supporting it.
Yeah, please. No, thank you, appreciate it, but no. Councillor Hemmens and Councillor Eastmere. Sorry, yes, I bumped off Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Hemmens, and then we'll get Councillor Thorpe back on.
Go ahead, Councillor Thorpe.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to thank Councillor Manley for pivoting and asking for a staff report, because as written on the agenda tonight, there was no way I could support it, because I don't have the know-how or the knowledge to judge waste to energy incinerators or thermal electrical generators. You clearly have information there that I don't. That said, given that we heard that this would kick Harmac into a non-conforming use, I find really alarming. The piece that I find compelling on the other side of the argument actually came from Dr. Ricker, and that's that, yes, these are provincially and federally regulated, and I agree that regulation appropriately rests with those levels of government. But what I don't understand is whether the province or the feds look at the cumulative aspect of these industries in a community. So I find that compelling. Given all of that, I'm inclined to not support tonight, simply because I think the pushing Harmac into a non-conforming use is counter to what we're trying to do in terms of economic development, in terms of technology, in terms of how we support businesses locally. So if someone can convince me that getting a staff report and having a broader debate on this is appropriate, I think I could probably go there, but I'm leaning towards not supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere? Oh, sorry, Councillor Thorpe. Trouble is, once you're off this stupid electronic thing, you disappear.
Oh, you wish I'd disappeared.
No, not at all.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Yes, I would like to chime in on this. And, you know, quite often I would be prepared to accept a motion asking for a staff report, because information is always good. But I look at the original motion, which called for preparing a zoning amendment to prohibit certain industrial scale uses, and the revised motion, which to my mind is almost the same. It asks for let me read it, staff prepare a report with options on zoning amendments to exclude emissions from certain industries. So we're asking for a report that's already biased in one way. It's asking for options to disallow these certain industries. So for that reason, among others, I'm not prepared to support this. And I find it really alarming that more than once at this council table, with all due respect, I've heard statements to the effect that, oh, well, we support Harmac, we support the forest industry, we support industry, but then through our actions, we do exactly the opposite. I'm not interested in banning, with a blanket ban, all industrial uses on industrial land. I'm sure some people would prefer not to have any industry around Nanaimo. But the reality is we need it, as I think other councillors have acknowledged. And quite frankly, I find what we're talking about here today borders on fear-mongering. I think if something really horrible was proposed, as Councillor Geselbrock mentioned back in 2014, there would be public outcry, and it would be dealt with. So I don't see the need for this. Councillor Manley referred to ensuring proper democratic process. I don't see how this is doing that. In fact, I think it's the opposite. It's a blanket denial of industrial usages. So the message that I think we're sending through this, whether intentionally or not, is a message of anti-business, anti-industry. I don't think it takes into account new technologies, doesn't take into effect the fact that the province is openly interested in LNG and biomass, and we have heard, quite frankly and definitely from the delegation, that this will affect operations of a very respected and important local business. So I'm sorry, I can't accept this, I can't support it, even to the effect of getting a report, because I think the report is as I said, is already leaning to a certain outcome, which I'm not interested in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown again? Pardon me, Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. Can I get confirmation on on it making Harmac a non-conforming use now? That wasn't clear to me that is actually implied by this motion.
Mr. Lindsay.
Your Worship, I think this is a prime example where the devil would be in the details. So I think we'd have to bring back the report, which would outline options. At a very high level, if you completely removed a use and that use continued to be on a property, you're right, it would be legal non-conforming. There's implications of that, not only for the business, but in terms of how, for example, how things are approved. If a use is non-conforming, it can go to the Board of Variance to get approval for expansion. It brings in a whole different set of considerations. The other option would be if you removed a use, but at the same time recognize existing uses in the community, that would be treated differently. So I think it would really depend on the details of the bylaw and how council ultimately adopted it, which is if council supported this motion tonight, we'd bring back that in the report, those options and the impacts of those options.
So I'm hearing that we could get a report and finesse this in a way that it would not paint Harmac as a non-conforming use, which is what I would be most interested in. My second question is around the word existing. Does the word existing need to be in this? Because I think what we're talking about is for all industrial zones, because we're in the process of potentially rezoning future areas to industrial zones. And so having the word existing in there really muddies it for me. So I think I'd be looking to strike the word existing from this motion as a friendly amendment.
Well, we're not going to just accept it. If you're proposing an amendment to the motion that's on the floor, propose the amendment. We'll see if we have a seconder.
I am proposing an amendment to strike the word existing.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Brown? Discussion on this? Councillor Eastmere?
I have further comments, but I think it's unrelated to the word existing. So if we wanted to vote on that amendment.
We're speaking to the amendment. It's been seconded.
As I said, I don't understand why the word existing needs to be in there at this point. We will have future zones that will likely be rezoned to industrial, and so I think what we're actually talking about is the future areas that will become industrial zones where we want to make sure that we're doing industry in a good way.
If I'm going to speak to this, if I'm going to exercise that privilege, taking out the term existing, it seems to me, includes all industrial zones, whether existing, pre-existing, or those to come to being in the future. With great respect, I think the proposed amendment makes it worse, but we'll hear from Councillor Brown, Councillor Manley, and then Councillor Gesselbrock. Is that, gentlemen? No? You're okay? All right. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment? Councillor Gesselbrock?
I think by removing the word existing, it alleviates some of the fears about, Harmac being non-conforming, and I think that it gives greater clarity to the staff report that would give us much needed information on looking at what the real options are without sort of talking in hypotheticals and fear. Thank you.
Thank you. Those in favor of the amendment? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Brown, and Manley. Those opposed, Councillors Armstrong, Councillor Hemmons, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino. The motion to amend fails. We're back in the original motion.
Okay, if I could continue my comments then, thank you. So I'm in support of this because I would like to see what staff would come back to us with in a report on this. What I find alarming is that we could be, without this, we could potentially be leaving the door open to things like chemical plants, petroleum refineries, LNG export facilities, and emissions-intensive industries that negatively impact human health. And as Councillor Manley pointed out, we won't have the mechanisms to stop those things. And so I really think that is the entire point of this, is that we will have to look at each of those projects and they'll have to make the case that it really is good for our community. And when we look at what the province is saying yes to, some of these LNG export facilities, they are foreign owned. The money is not going back into the community, it's going to like American stakeholders and investors. And so it's not benefiting the community and the money is not coming here. And so this is really in order for us to have the guardrails at the local level to be able to listen to the community and hear if it's really something that is going to benefit our community, because we're the ones that need to live with the downstream consequences. And frankly, when I see the decisions being made by the Minister of the Environment, I can't believe what they're letting happen in this province when they say that they care about our environment and they're letting us go down the path of LNG expansion and fracked methane gas. That is harmful for not only the environment, but as we heard from a doctor tonight, seriously harmful to human health. And the people making the decision and saying yes to this aren't having to live in our communities and deal with the downstream consequences and look people in the face who are getting really sick because of these industries and aren't able to access the health care because our provincial healthcare system is letting them down as well. And so at the end of the day, when we're trying to build a community that is livable and sustainable, I think it's really important for us to, yes, be able to support industry, but support industry that has the best interest of our community and our future in mind. And so I really think that this is going to give us a mechanism to be able to look at these projects and make sure that we're doing it in a good way, and that you have local stakeholders, local nations, and the community on board before you say yes to these things.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm going to support this motion, and the reasons for me is simple. I think the council table would benefit from the staff report as this discussion goes on. With all due respect to councillors here, zoning very much is, land use very much is in our lane. That's why we have it. That's why the power's been given to us. So yes, in all sorts of things, there's provincial and federal regulations, but land use is in our lane, and that's a decision we can make. So I think to say that it's not our decision to make is simply not true. I also have heard lots around, we have to, it's not just that, but around foreign investors and communities. Fundamentally, zoning is about the use, not the user. So that's not a consideration when it comes to decisions. So, and also, there is a way to structure this very much so it would not impact Harmac. That's the reality. I don't think the motion reads entirely that way, but I think council could make that, provide that direction if they were furnished with proper information. So I think I'm going to support this because I don't want this conversation to carry on uninformed. That's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley, then Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did misspeak when I mentioned it would be non-conforming because I don't know. I mean, that is not my intent. My motion specifically does not mention anything about the forest industry. And my conversations with Paul Sadler about the use of the land that they want to rezone as heavy industry is for adjacent forest industry projects like mass timber, CMT, like other sawmills, so that there are feedstocks to feed Harmac. and that is something that I support. I support the forest industry. I think that that's, you know, we need to be utilizing the wood that we have on this island and not be exporting it. We export 2.7 million cubic meters. As Councillor Brown has stated, zoning is in our lane. We have 4 different industrial zones, and they all highlight what is permissible in those zones. We do not have data centers anywhere in our zoning, so it has to be site-specific. And I would prefer to have industries that are known to be highly polluting, creating emissions that are toxic for human health, to have to go through a site-specific process so that we can have a democratic and public process about that, so that we can have public hearings to discuss that, so that we can hear from professionals. I do not see the provincial government looking at cumulative effects when they're doing their environmental reviews. Otherwise, we would not see Alcan, you know, an aluminum smelter right beside Eurocan, which is a pulp mill, right beside LNG Canada. And then LNG Phase 2 and Cedar LNG, all proposed in what is becoming a sacrifice zone. And I don't want to see Nanaimo become a sacrifice zone. You know, there are limits to what humans can absorb, to what the environment can absorb. And so, you know, we should be able to have a discussion and hear from experts on each of these individual kinds of proposals that would affect human health. I don't trust the provincial government or the federal government to do that for us. They are not looking at cumulative effects, and that is clear in Dawson Creek, and that is clear in Kitimat. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Armstrong again, and then Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. I do think it's really important to very clearly reiterate that choosing where things go is very much in council's lane. We choose where industrial land is going to be, where residential land is going to be. That's our whole official community plan process, is that. The different categories of industrial land, I2, I3, I4, all clearly have a description of what can go in there and what can't go in there. So banging the drum about staying in our lane is nonsensical, and I think it's a convenient argument to detract what our job actually is. The incinerator that was proposed out at Duke Point for Metro Vancouver's garbage was approved, you know, through provincial and federal regulatory bodies. So it does make a big difference, and we need to have a public dialogue around these things. And I think, you know, getting a staff report so people clearly understand what is possible and what isn't would really bring a lot of clarity to this table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Question through you to staff. My question is, I know this is a zoning thing, but it's based actually on an environmental reason, being the emissions. Would that then require environmental ministry approval, because it is, in my opinion, weighing into the environment?
Mr. Lindsay.
Yeah, Your Worship, I think that's a very good question, but I think it's something we have to bring back to you. Clearly, as council has the ability to regulate land use, you have limited ability to regulate emissions, and I can think of things like wood burning stoves, vehicle idling, for example, I know is in the legislation, but you do have to be cautious and careful not to go outside the sphere of authority and into provincial authority whenever considering a bylaw. So I think it's generally, as long as you stay to land use, you're fine, but it's certainly something to be mindful of with any change.
And just one thing I just wanted to reply to Councillor Eastman when she said that the jobs are here, so the money is staying in our community. Yes, a lot of the profit may not be, but people out here are all working here, making good cash, they're supporting their families here, they're supporting the businesses. And if we don't have resources, where are we going to get the money to even do any of the things you guys want to do? Because our whole province and country is based on resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Brown. Getting staff information is never a bad idea. I'm hearing complexity around whether it's conforming or non-conforming. provincial regulation versus municipal zoning. So I'm going to support just to get the staff report, but I will say that I have reservations. And I would like to request that the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation be, if this passes, that they be one of the groups that gets consulted in the impact of a rezoning amendment like this, or a zoning amendment, pardon me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think I can see this way motion's going to go potentially. Let me say I will not support this motion. The motion says that staff prepare a report with options on zoning amendment to bylaw 4500 that exclude emissions from intense heavy industries. I am told, in response to Dr. Ricker's health concerns, that this thing will give me brain cancer over time, potentially. I suspect everyone here tonight drove here in a vehicle that contains some amount of steel from somewhere. So the concept that we won't allow anything in our community that might be deleterious to our health when we continue to use the products that are prepared and created in other jurisdictions, to me, is somewhat hypocritical. Oh, I'm not prepared to welcome a steel plant here tomorrow or a ferrochromium plant. I get the point and the discussion around that. But there is a level of hypocrisy in which I will simply not engage, and this happens to be one of them. We well know what the intent of this is with the original motion, and now so much better, intense heavy industries. That phrase covers pretty much anything that involves any heavy manufacturing whatsoever. Let's not kid ourselves. It says intense heavy industries such as. It doesn't say anything about the specifics of heavy industries. So it's a pretty broad thing we're asking staff to report on. They will expect to come back to us and give us some meaningful report. Councillor Hemmons has raised the issue of consulting the Prosperity Corporation. Oh well, what about the unions that represent the workers? What about the Chamber of Commerce? What about the industries in this community? What about scientific experts? What about people who understand or purport to understand trade negotiation, trade agreements, as well as Councillor Manley? Where does this all lead in terms of preparing something that might be useful for Council to make a decision about whether or not we want to limit and put guardrails around something that at this point doesn't even exist? We should be so lucky that people would be fighting to bring industries to our community that we might not support. At this point, we're not anywhere near that. Let us recognize, after COVID and breakdowns in supply chains, how desperately we rely on the entire world, just as people relied on what Harmac produced, producing masks, the products, as I recall, that were used for masks that everybody wore during COVID. I suspect that maybe someone wouldn't want a pulp mill in their community, but the pulp mill in our community helped save Canadian lives and protect Canadian health. So let us remember we are all in this together. And what this motion basically says to anyone who wants to invest in this community, don't bother going to Nanaimo, don't bother worrying about whether the land is zoned for heavy industry, because Nanaimo wants to limit everything that might actually create some real jobs, as Councillor Armstrong has explained, that might provide some real wages. Either we are going to build and do things in this country in a democratic nation with generally, hopefully, union family supporting jobs, or we're going to continue to export the ugly side of our life that we don't want to face. I bet you there's not a person here tonight that isn't wearing some piece of clothing that has petroleum products in it. Let's be blunt about that. So again, I come back to my point around hypocrisy. This will not advance the case of the community. We will not get back a report that is terribly useful. We will get back a report that will tell us what we can do to exclude industry that might be somewhat more specific and less frightening to anyone who might wish to invest in it. But that's all we're going to get. So I will not support this motion. I would not have supported the previous motion, and I won't support this one. All those in favor of the motion, Councillors Eastmere, Kesselbrock, Hemmons, Brown and Manley, and those opposed, Councillors Armstrong, Mayor Crowe, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, the motion carries. Thank you everyone for the debate. All right, Councillor Manley, the next one is yours as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hopefully this one doesn't get you as upset. This is a motion that staff provide a report on options to regulate industries that include the use of noxious chemicals and creation of toxic dust to require proper ventilation and not be closer than 250 meters from residential areas. And if I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Discussion?
So we have heard, we've received a number of complaints from an existing industrial use in very close proximity to a residential area. And so people were complaining about noxious fumes that we know about that were creating headaches and nausea and are detrimental to human health. And I do not think it's a good idea to have these kind of emissions so close to residential areas. And so I'd like to get a report. I know we have an existing non-conforming business that some people have been complaining about, and there are likely other situations in the community. But I think that it's wise to ensure that we have some regulations that ensure that this doesn't happen again, because it's not fair to residents, and it's not fair to have a business move into an industrial area across the street from a residential area, but that have that business emitting noxious fumes. And it's not just about ventilation for the workers, it's also about making sure that those fumes are not spreading into people's homes so they can't open their windows. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe, then Councillor Himmons.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll start on this one, and here we go with more emissions. Another report on options to regulate. In other words, to minimize, shut down, or whatever. And quite frankly, you know, previous conversations with Councillor Manley, he's got concerns about a particular business. And one of my concerns is that this motion seems to be quite targeted. And I would hope not. But we already have zoning. We already have bylaw enforcement for violations. So I'm sorry, I just don't see the need for this. Unless it's going after a particular business, and I won't support that.
Thank you. Councillor Himmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Along similar lines as Councillor Thorpe, I'd be curious for staff's input on this. I do know that I think the genesis of this is about a business, and that business is known to be non-compliant and bylaws is on it, and so I'm just not sure whether this is going to get us to the place of removing or mediating a difficult business. So that's very vague, but if staff could share any input on how they would interpret this and whether this is regulating industries that include the use of noxious chemicals and creation of toxic dust. Do we not have regulations that do that? Will this be new work for staff?
Your Worship, I think, you know, that this motion really strikes at something that's somewhat uniquely in Nanaimo, in that we have these little small industrial parks from pre-amalgamation that are all over our community, and that they've grown up with residential very close by. So it's kind of an unusual but very Nanaimo situation, and from time to time you run into businesses in those areas that change or evolve and become concerns to neighbors. I think absolutely there's building code requirements, there's work safe requirements that are not ours, that are around ventilation requirements, but those are more about making sure the interior of the building is properly ventilated for people that work there. We do not have, or do I think, going back to the earlier question about those spheres of authority, I don't think we'd have the actual ability to regulate the quality of anything being vented out of a building. However, you could certainly regulate uses, different types of uses that were within a prescribed distance from a boundary. So 250 meters from a boundary, you could regulate some type of use that would be known to have, I guess, the use of noxious chemicals. But I think sorry, I'm not answering the question very well, but I think it's certainly something that if we took back, if this motion passed, we'd have to come back with some options for council of how you would do this.
Thank you. A follow-up, if I may. I'm hearing you say, Mr. Lindsay, that these come up from time to time. Staff could develop or deliver a report that contemplates removing these as they come up from time to time. But I'm not seeing I'm not feeling or sensing a need for this imminently. I feel like this is attached to one business, so I'm not feeling compelled to support this. But thank you, Councillor Manley, for bringing it forward.
Thank you. I must say, the wording of this motion gives me some problems. Provide a report on options to regulate industries that include the use of noxious chemicals and the creation of toxic dust, and to require proper ventilation not to close 150 meters from residential areas. Last time I paid attention to the issues of workplace safety, that was the purview of WorkSafe BC, who have never been accused of under-regulating in my general experience, in my dealings with the business community or anyone else. So I'm not prepared to support this motion. It's going to require staff to spend time on a report. We've already saddled them with a report tonight that will be challenging, to say the least. And I appreciate the concern for one particular business and one particular place in a particular part of town that's been the focus of this, but I think we already have everything in place to appropriately deal with it. It may not be as quick as some people would like in terms of justice, but as I'm always reminded, the mills of the gods grind slowly, but they grind exceeding fine. So I'm not going to support it. Councillor Gesselbrock, floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, we do have a situation where we have like pockets of industrial throughout a rapidly densifying city, and we do have situations where there's homes and sometimes multifamily homes nearby, and a business goes in, or it has been operating there for a while, and it's blowing toxic dust out that people are walking by, inhaling, kids, and it may not, you know, we may have mechanisms in place to deal with it very slowly. When it's actually you that, or your kid that actually is exposed to these things, you're freaking out. Like every day is a lot. And I think that even if it's just one situation, we should at least get a staff report back to look at what options we have to do to ameliorate our ability to deal with situations like that. I think that's completely reasonable, and I know the people living near these places would think that would be completely reasonable. So I think it's a good use of staff time. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Brown, and Manley. Those opposed? Councillors Armstrong, Hemmens, Mayor Crow, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Brino. Motion is defeated. Thank you. On to Councillor Hemmens' motion, the Colwood Primary Care Model.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the motion. If there's a seconder, I will provide content.
Councillor Hemmens.
Thank you. I know I'm not the only one at this table hearing about the Colwood primary care model from people in the community. I think there's a lot of curiosity about it, and we all know why. That's because access to primary care is a big challenge for a lot of our residents. Rather than do the research myself, I was kindly reminded that I could just ask for a staff report. We could all get the same information at the same time. So that's what I am asking for, and I want to emphasize that this is just a request for an information report. I think I've shared with everyone at this table, I am quite skeptical of the model, working closely in primary care in Nanaimo. I don't intend for the report to present any decision points, but I would like to see what staff can glean when speaking with staff in Colwood about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong, then Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Crino.
Thank you. I know this is just a year pilot project, so I'm wondering if we should wait till Colwood finishes the pilot project and then wait to see, because right now I think it's a little soon to be getting that information when they haven't had a chance to, they're going to be looking at it to see if they want to continue it. So I would prefer to wait the year and then get the report to see, because right now we don't know the pros or cons because they're in the middle of doing it.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I think it is good to get this into the public awareness and see it, and so I support it. You literally can type like into like an AI program like Perplexity or whatever, please provide a report on the Colwood Care Model, and it'll give you all the information that's publicly available, clearly outlined. So hopefully staff don't put too much energy into creating this report because there is a limitation on resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino, then Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually was going to say very similar to Councillor Armstrong that the fact is it is a pilot project. It's still at the early stages. They're trying to see what is working, what isn't working. You know, that evaluation process will be very interesting to hear. I also think that the Division of Family Practice, I'm sure they're looking at this and trying to figure out, is this the way to go? Because in the Colwoods case, they didn't have any doctors. We have many doctors. So how would we even consider changing over if we were able to? So for me, it is a little premature. I certainly appreciate the intent, and it's not that I am not in favor of getting a report. I do think it's a little premature. I do want to see what the pilot project will bring out, and I do want to hear from the Division of Family Practice. So should this vote go ahead, I hope that staff will at least talk to the Division of Family Practice and see where they are on this one. So appreciate the motion. Councillor Hemmings.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you. Yeah, I am interested in how this pilot project's going to work out. When people have emailed me about this, I've basically let them know that our focus is on rebuilding the Nanaimo Regional General Hospital, and that's what we really need to put our energy into in this community. And our situation is different than Colwood because of that, because we have a tertiary hospital, which is, it's not really a tertiary hospital. It needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of infrastructure and money. And in Colwood, they're a very short drive to a number of tertiary hospitals and a lot of other care opportunities. That said, I am interested in finding out, and I will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to support the motion for the reasons explained by Councillors Armstrong and Perino tonight. And if anyone thinks I'm voting against public health care, then they don't know where I stand on public health care. But realistically, the Colwood model, as Councillor Perino has pointed out, was designed to deal with a community that had access to no doctors. Councillor Armstrong's point about letting it play out and see how well it works, because it will require a financial commitment eventually. I mean, that's the point of doing this. It's a financial commitment of staff to prepare an information report, to do research on something that hasn't been, how shall I say, given much chance to demonstrate whether or not it's effective. And in addition, at a wonderful healthcare forum sponsored by the Nanaimo Regional District Health Hospital Board, last week, we were informed that the percentage of people with without access to a family physician in the area has dropped from 30 to 18%. And the concept behind this motion would be to get an information report with a view potentially to spending money, to setting up a clinic and experiencing those costs, etc., which may well be beneficial to the community. And of course, it's always very popular to do something where people want access to health care. But the more we delve into areas that are properly that of the provincial government, the more the provincial government will happily step aside and let municipal government and taxpayers, with great respect, foot the bill. And so for that reason, I'm not prepared to support it. If Councillor Hemmings makes this motion in a year and Colwood's been up in operation and we know it's a model that works and can make sense, then so be it. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's premature. Councillor Hemmings.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for your comments. I forgot to state that the City of Nanaimo has a really wonderful working relationship with the primary care community here, and we do better work, I think, than most municipalities on that front. This really is emerging from, I work with a lot of primary care physicians locally, and everyone is really curious about this. So I agree with the Mayor. We don't want to spend property tax dollars on this. That's why the staff report, how is that looking, how much? Even the question of when does the pilot end and what are the evaluation metrics by which it will be measured, unclear to me. So I think a staff report would just get us all to the same place so we could have a reasonable, open conversation about it. Thank you.
All those in favor? Councillors Gesselbrock, Hemmings, and Manley, and those opposed, Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown. Motion is defeated. Thank you. Question period, Ms. Gurry. Mr. Annesley,
Yep,
10A.
right. Just having to do with the parking. So good evening, Mayor and Council. I was just wondering, in the report I read, that was presented at the governance and priorities meeting, it suggested as you took away mandatory minimums and put in maximums, that there would be a significant amount of parking on, as it says, curbside management, but street parking. And it doesn't say, since you voted it through, it doesn't say anywhere where, how you're going to resolve that. It just simply says bylaw enforcement or any other method. So I'm just wondering, what is going to be your way to remediate that? Is it going to be parking meters? Are we talking about lessening the 24-hour period that someone can park to 12 hours? Because the report does suggest that people aren't going to give up their cars right away, so it is going to lead to some significant more cars on the street. So I'm just wondering, what was the curbside management, what's been the discussion in terms of your curbside management?
Mr. Lindsay, I would probably answer something to this effect, or Mr. Sims may wish to. We have bylaw officers. We will designate parking accordingly in various areas. This is something that will play out over a long period of time. Mr. Sims?
Thanks, Your Worship. I think that this question touches on a point that it was highlighted throughout the study periods and the presentations to council, is that as hopefully the culture of car dependence shifts a little bit, and we don't expect it to go away, we just expect it to shift, there's going to be a pinch point where there's less parking available on site, for example, and which is going to squeeze more people out onto the streets. And there's going to be a period of adjustment, certainly, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be a pinch point. It's going to be, if there's, we'll have to deal with it as we deal with it now, which is increasing parking fees or increasing the radius of pay parking and that sort of thing.
Okay, so what I just said, pretty much you are considering, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Perino, seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor, any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.